Good morning, everyone. Good morning, guys. If I'm audible and visible, could you please let me know in the chat section so that we can begin with our class as early as possible? I hope I'm audible and visible. Just let me know in the chat section. A very good morning to everyone. Let's begin with our session. Now, in today's class, just like the class that has happened yesterday, we will be covering important and relevant topics for your mains preparation of 2023. Now, the purpose of these sessions is to make you ready for 2023 mains examination. One thing is particularly clear, and that is Sriram IAS on Unacademy platform is there to help you out throughout the process, throughout your journey towards preparing your entire the entire process of UPSC Civil Services examination, be it the prelims, be it the mains, and the interviews. For example, these courses that Sri Ram's IS has brought for you guys on Unacademy platform, for example, the foundation batch for 2024. Guys, if you wish to avail this course, you should use the referral code Sri Rams, that is SRIRAMS, Sri Rams. If you use this referral code, you will get an instant 20% flat discount. Now, not just that, if you are preparing for any of these optional subjects, be it sociology, public administration, I am taking, there is a comprehensive course that is available. PSIR optional, economics optional, history optional. If you are pursuing any of these optional subjects, then certainly you should be going through the video lessons, the sessions that we have conducted on Unacademy platform. You should also make sure to follow me on Unacademy so that you get instant updates as well. Now, as far as the foundation batch is concerned, it is a mission 1 year for UPSC CSE 2024. Given that we are covering a comprehensive analysis of all the topics that are relevant for you guys for prelims, mains, as well as interviews. Now, this 2024 comprehensive batch will cover the entire 100% syllabus of UPSC. Now, I know there are so many students who are preparing for 2024 who have been, because of various agendas and various different analysis on YouTube, they have fallen prey to a rhetoric that UPSC has, gone berserk in asking questions in the manner that they have been asking questions in 2022, in 2023 prelims. See, as far as prelims is concerned, it is a screening round. It is supposed to be exclusionary in its own nature. It is supposed to exclude people. It is not an inclusive exam. It is an exclusive exam. The reason why I say this is that if 5 lakh odd individuals are to apply for the exam and around 3 odd lakh individuals are to appear for the exam, and that is also in a comprehensive and a cumulative fashion, then certainly you will have to realize that the paper is going to be difficult. Unless and until the paper is difficult, it cannot exclude more people. It is not about scoring more in prelims, it is about qualifying in prelims, right? Further, the approach that a student has to take, and that is something that we at Sriram's IS have very good idea of, and given the experience that we had, the approach that any student, any candidate should have should be with respect to 1 year. And based on that 1 year, they should give their 100%. That is all what UPSC demands. Now, you cannot stop working on the syllabus. It is not that UPSC has stopped asking questions from the syllabus. All right. So make sure that you go through the video sessions of these courses. Make sure to follow every faculty on Unacademy platform. that Sriram IAS is bringing to you guys. Now, this batch has started on 8th of June. Make sure to avail this course as early as possible. If you have any queries, then what you can do is you can use this phone number 8585858585 246 810. All right. You can call on this number for more details. Now, apart from that, if you are directly availing this course, then I would suggest and recommend that you should go through SRIRAMS, that is the referral code, all right, for an instant 20% discount. Just to give you a brief introduction about myself, this is me, guys. If you look at me, and this is my name, my qualifications, the years of experience that I've had. I have to change this to 12 in a couple of weeks. And then these are the subjects that I handle. Now, apart from that, as I've told you, if you follow the process, if you use this referral code, you will get an instant 20% discount. We are running a mission on Unacademy. Sriram IAS is working on a mission of 1 year to help students crack the 2024 examination, not just the prelims, but prelims, mains, and interviews. This is a comprehensive process, guys. Now, apart from that, the classes that we are to cover through these sessions, remember, on Saturdays and on Sundays, you will find Anshum sir on Saturdays on Unacademy UPSC Articulate channel, and on Sundays, you will find me at Unacademy UPSC Articulate channel, working with you guys live for 2.5 hours. Be energetic, stay energetic. We shall push you through, and this is relevant for mains. There are certain subjects that Anshum sir will take care of. For example, polity, for example, IR, right? There are certain subjects that I would take care of. For example, economics, for example, art and culture, right? Science and tech, and various other miscellaneous topics. Now, in today's session, we have to start with economics because economics is a broad contour, है ना? But before I go on and discuss the topics, I want to give you the strategy for Mission Mains 2023. The Mission Mains 2023 is based on one thing and one thing only. And I'll show it to you using the previous year question papers. You will realize that if you follow the set of question papers, you will certainly crack the code if you follow the strategy that we are discussing here. Number one, what are the broad areas that we will be covering? Guys, you cannot skip the syllabus. What I have brought for you here is the syllabus. We will be discussing the syllabus today, but in the next session, from next session onwards, you will not be seeing me discussing the these syllabus. We will discuss question papers. I will keep bringing mains question papers time and again so that you get a very good idea as to how to approach. Also, stay tuned till the end of this session because I will give you dictation to the answers. I will show it to you how to write good answers, how to write good introductions, how to write good conclusions, from where to pick up on things. Please make sure to follow this session through and through. Also, call in everybody, ask them to join the session as early as possible. All right. Now, so Indian culture, that will cover the salient aspects of art forms, literature, architecture from ancient to modern times. Now, ancient to modern times, people think that still, since ancient art forms, literature, culture has a very broad connotation, you should skip on the modern times. But you should have an analytical approach. Focusing on an analytical approach, you should not skip on the modern times as well. And that is where the literature, the architecture, of course, will not be a part because it's not too vivid today. But We will have to focus on ancient, medieval, and modern times. We will have to have an analytical approach towards the transition from ancient, medieval, and modern. And further, if you notice the kind of questions that have been asked, they have been asked like a spotlight question. These are called spotlight questions. You know why I call them spotlight questions? These spotlight questions are basically on one topic, but they ask almost everything related to that topic. That is why it is a spotlight question. Sometimes you will find that one particular niche or one particular type of area has been taken care of. Now, salient features of Indian society, diversity of India, role of women, women's organization, population, and associated issues. So, this is all related to sociology and demography. All the topics and all the important reports relevant to this we will be covering, and how to develop an acumen to write an answer with respect to women, women related organization, how to be really out there, how to understand, how to pursue, and how to make sure that your answer stands apart. If not stand apart, then at least cover all the relevant information. When
Relevant to
you
this, we
are
will be
covering
covering
this,
and how
whenever you're
to
covering
develop an
this,
acumen to write an
understand
answer with
one
respect
thing.
to women, women
You
related organization,
should
how to
make
be
sure that you
really out
follow a
there, how to
strategy
understand,
with
how to
respect to
pursue, and
current
how to make
affairs.
sure that
If you
your
are
answer
covering current affairs,
stands
although
apart.
today it is
If
very
not
similar
stand
for
apart,
prelims
then
and
at
mains, it
least
is almost
cover
similar
all
to be
the
covering
relevant
any of these
information.
topics.
Relevant to
But
this,
you
we
are
will be
covering, you
covering
have to make
and
sure that
how
whenever
to
you're covering
develop an
this,
acumen to write an
understand
answer with
one
respect
thing.
to
When I
women,
say
women
depths
related
of certain
organization,
topics,
how to
make
be
sure that you
really out
follow
there,
a
how to
strategy that you
understand,
should
with
cover.
how to
For
pursue,
example,
and
current
how to
affairs,
make
political
sure
aspects.
that
If
your
you are
answer
covering current affairs,
stands
although
apart.
today it is
If
very
not
similar
stand
for
apart,
prelims
then
and
at
mains, it
least
is almost
cover
similar
all
to be
the
covering
relevant
any of these. You should
information.
cover the social aspects.
Relevant to
But
this,
you
we
should
will be
cover the
covering
economic
and
aspects.
how
Whenever
to
you're covering
develop an
this, you should
acumen to write an
understand
answer
the
with respect to
scientific
women, women
related
related
answers to
organization,
this.
how to
Make
be
sure you cover
really out
all
there,
the
how to
factual
understand,
factual
with how
answers.
to
For example,
pursue, and how to make
you
sure
should cover
that
the
your
historical
answer
aspect, right?
stands apart.
All the
Today it
subjects
is,
that
if
you are
not
thankful
stand
that there
apart,
are
then at least
every
cover
single
all the
topic
relevant
might have
information.
cover the social
Topic.
aspects, something
You are
directly
covering
or
this
indirectly associated
whenever
with
you
that
develop an
is what
acumen
you
to
are
write
covering.
an answer
Now,
with respect to women, women
as
related
far
organization,
as
how to
your
be
approach is
how
concerned
out
towards
there,
these
how
topics,
to
I hope you
understand,
realize
how to pursue,
how
and
to
how to
pursue these
make
things.
sure that
Every
your
single
answer
answer
stands
shall have
apart.
the
Today it is,
scouting
if
all the
not
ways.
similar to
Unless and
prelims,
until
this is
that you have the
almost similar to
degree,
supplementary.
you
We
think
have
that
covered the
something
social
or
topic.
you do not want people to be thinking that when they are actually taking your answers. And now, poverty and developmental issues, urbanization, their problems, their remedies. There have been multiple reports, there have been multiple indices that various international organizations have come up with respect to urbanization. Poverty and developmental issues. Uh, just a second, guys. Just a second. I hope I am audible now. I hope everything is working fine now. There seems to be some audio glitch. Just give me a couple of seconds, huh? Wonderful. I know what would have happened. Actually, we have to make sure that I can see your chats as well. So we have to open up one particular window so that we can see your chat. So it just in case, what happens is desktop audio gets, remained on, तो उसमें आवाज आ जाती है. No issues, no worries. All well, all in good gesture. Now, the concepts in poverty and developmental issues. If you go through the question paper, and I'll tell you what, I have brought the question paper for you guys. I have brought the question paper for you guys. We will be covering this question paper. Now, when we cover this question paper, you would realize the kind of questions that have been asked, how relevant they are. Okay. Now, before we go on to all of these things, let's slowly and steadily, stepwise, move ahead. Let's not jump the wagon. Now, poverty and developmental issues. There are so many reports that have come up. There are, for example, there are so many aspects that have been covered with respect to development in India. Niti Aayog's reports, and 2050 target, the Mission 2050, and the various schemes and various policies that the government runs on developmental issues, inclusive growth issues, all the things that are interrelated. Now, you cannot say that since this is a part of GS1, this is part of GS1, right? What if I were to talk about role of women in developmental issues? Or what is the role of women with respect to urbanization? What is the impact of women and women related issues on urbanization, or urbanization's impact on women related issues? You cannot say that the UPSC will not be double crossing, or it will not be utilizing multiple topics all at once. There will be instances there, and for that reason, what you have to realize is, number one, UPSC follows a plan. Number two, UPSC does not follow that plan. What is the first rule? UPSC follows a plan. What is the plan? It is the syllabus. Second thing, UPSC does not follow the plan. When I say that, it means that UPSC will certainly be within the contours of the syllabus, but it will not stick to one particular aspect of one particular portion of the syllabus. It will try to interlink one to two subjects, one to two topics, or if it has not done that in the question, then you will have to do it. So within the broad contours of the syllabus, that means that we will have to understand the syllabus first. Poverty and developmental issues, urbanization, their problems and their remedies, effects of globalization on Indian society, social empowerment, communalism, regionalism, secularism. I will make you write down introductions of all these topics that you can utilize in your mains examination, in your answers, and trust me, they will be really good. All right. Many students, I have pursued various courses in essays, and I have made sure that the same thing happens for essays as well. I provide you with introduction, the body, the conclusion, and everything. Of course, yes, of course, you will have to follow the strategy of IBC, introduction, body, and conclusion. It seems like a very boring strategy, right? I know everybody talks about introduction, body, conclusion, introduction, body, conclusion. I'll give you the reason. It gives your thought process certain structure. When your thought process gets structured, then it has a scope for every single thing that you have to talk about. Number one. Number two, it also allows you to be concise and crisp, because when you realize that you have done writing introduction, now you have to move on to the body, then you are not overutilizing your word limit. And that is why this approach of introduction, body, and conclusion is a far-fetched idea. It is a wonderful idea, and that is why everybody talks about it. All right. Further, development, biodiversity, environment, security, disaster management. There is a report, the third report of second administrative reforms commission. There have been two administrative reforms commissions, 1995 and 2005. So the second ARC, the second administrative reforms commission, gave out a report on disaster management by the name of crisis management. So we will be discussing a couple of things from that report, so that you realize the kind of things that you will have to cover in your mains examination. Now, these reports are public in nature. That does not mean that they are related to public administration alone. You can surely use certain data, certain information that can really help you out. Now, certainly you will have to remember one thing. The If you are following, say for example, a couple of topics that we were covering, with respect to sociology. You will have to make sure that the way you are writing answers to these questions that are related to these topics, you should not cross the line of general studies and enter into the domain of sociology or any other optional subject. That should not happen. There should be a clear cut distinction in your approach to write answers with respect to your general studies and your optional subject. If that does not happen, then UPSC tends to feel wary of the candidate and they tend to give lesser marks. That is it. Because you then are showing off your knowledge, and that is something that UPSC does not really like. That is it. They want you to show your knowledge in a very subtle sense. Let's understand that. Okay? चलो आगे बढ़ते हैं. Now, Indian economy, its issues relating to planning, mobilization of resources. Now, you cannot undermine the correlation of planning with decentralized planning. You cannot undermine the relevance of rural economy. Everything that I have just mentioned, I have written down, for example, it is a part of the process of planning because Gram Sabha has a role. If you do not interlink these things, then you are working on a very limited or an eschewed format. That should not happen. है ना? That should certainly not happen. Now, further, inclusive growth, issues arising from it, government budgeting, issues related to direct and indirect farm subsidies and minimum support prices, PDS objectives, functioning, limitations, revamping, issues related to buffer stock, food security, etc. Now, this is something that we will be covering today as a topic. We will be covering this topic today. Major crops, cropping patterns in various parts of the country. Various parts of the country. That means they can be talking about shifting agriculture. They can be talking about, slash and burn, jhum cultivation, so on and so forth. They can be talking about various other cropping patterns with respect to dryland farming. They can be talking about important aspects of agriculture where there is water scarcity. So different cropping patterns, maybe agroforestry, right? And maybe multi-cropping, maybe mixed cropping. These are different types of cropping patterns that can be utilized and various cropping systems can be asked. So that means there are certain topics. For example, there are people who are pursuing Indian forest services. For them, agriculture as a topic is really relevant and important. Now, no doubt they have a separate examination, but the fact of the matter is that these people they sit in prelims with you guys. That means that you and them they have to make sure the UPSC has to make sure that they have certain level of similar knowledge, and that is why this topic has to be covered in a very technical manner. Now, different types of irrigation, irrigation systems, storage irrigation. These days, there is a new concept of mist irrigation. That mist irrigation is actually being promoted at various social media platforms as well. I've been coming across a lot of, a lot of cases and a lot of advertisements where mist irrigation is being talked about. And mist farming, or rather using mist in agricultural and allied activities, is something that has been a talk of the town. Now, we will be discussing all of these things in the upcoming portion of our lecture series. This will be a long series on every Saturday, on every Sunday. Please make sure that you share this information with every friend of yours so that they get the maximum benefit. दोस्त का भला करना तो बनता है ना? Transport and marketing of agri-produce, issues and related constraints. So not just the production, the distribution, the procurement, every aspect of agriculture is being covered. E-tech in the aid for farmers, economics of animal rearing, the economics of animal rearing, not the science. Because if you were to talk about the science of animal rearing, then you would have been talking about what kind of slatted flooring that you have to have in poultry farms, what kind of shed, what should be the dimensions of shed for how many cows and buffaloes, for example, the kind of feed that you have to give them. That is the science. But the economics of animal rearing is the impact of animal rearing on agriculture per se, or agriculturists' economy and income per se. है ना? And apart from that, what are the inputs? What are the challenges? What are the issues relating to diseases? Not the technicalities of the diseases that have been asked in prelims examination. They will not ask you what disease affects what kind of the cattle, what kind of the animal. That is not going to be asked. What is going to be asked is what is the impact of these activities, animal rearing activities, on the overall economic health of your rural areas, for example. And can this be developed into something? Can this be created into some field? For example, can you advance it? Can you follow cooperative farming? Can you follow, you know, uh, associative farming? Can you follow contract farming? Can you pursue the economic dreams even in this field or not? And if you can, then how to do it further? Technology missions that enhance technology. This is science and tech related topic. Investment models. There was a question on public private partnership. You would not imagine how simplistic the question was. It was from last year's mains. I will be discussing that question right now after a couple of minutes. Further, food processing industry. There was a question directly associated with food processing industry, its related industries, its scope, significance, location, upstream, downstream requirements. Upstream, downstream requirements are basically your supply chain systems, where you have upstream is where you are moving from the consumer towards the producer. Downstream is from where you're going from the producer towards the consumer. So that is upstream, downstream requirements of managing things. Then supply chain management, all of these things. Direct question was asked. I will show it to you. Land reforms in India. ये question के लिए ज़्यादा wait नहीं करना पड़ेगा. Stay tuned, because every single question that was asked in the last year's paper, I will be discussing in a couple of minutes in this session only. Now, land reforms in India. Now, there was no question directly relating to land reforms as such in the last paper, but there can surely be one, given that food processing industry has been talked of directly. Now, effects of liberalization on the economy. Globalization already happened. Liberalization has to happen. Various investment models covers privatization. For example, privatization भी आएगा, LPG आ जाएगा सारा, है ना? Some directly, some indirectly. Then further, effects of liberalization on the Indian economy. Changes in the industrial policy, their effects on the industrial growth. Just a second. Various sectors of economy basically, which includes the infrastructure, the energy, ports, roads, airports, railways, etc. The plight of India's aviation sector, for example, can be a question, given that many airlines, they face this problem of not being profitable in India, even though they are running a lot of a lot of taxis, they are running a lot of traffic. Air traffic is being increasing in India. It is a booming market. Still, they are unable to maintain profitability. That challenge has to be considered and understood in the deepest sense. Further, science and technology and related developments, for example, their application effects in everyday life. So it is more or less a general science. It is more or less a general science. And its impact on everyday life, that will be asked. This portion will be asked. Further, achievements of Indians in the field of science and technology. Now, they have not mentioned the achievements from recent times. They have not mentioned achievements from recent times. You should make sure that any single year you will be surprised. You should not be surprised, but you will be surprised any single year in the upcoming years. that you might find questions on Raman effect, you might find questions on various aspects of JC Bose and various other individuals, and it might be asked in mains. So make sure that the achievements of Indians should not only be concised for modern times. गिने चुने लोग हैं, you can count them on in one single hand. If you cover these individuals in a holistic fashion, make sure to cover certain biographies of these individuals. Today, though, you have benefit of chat GPT, just put in the name of the thinker, the Indian scientist, mathematician, physician, and physicists, so on and so forth. Chemist, for example, Hargobind Khorana, है ना? So just find out the names, make a list of those names, use Chat GPT and Bard and whatnot, and try creating a relevant information set for all these individuals. So that just in case anything comes up, and even if nothing comes up, then also you can use them in your essays, in your general studies answers. They can be directly useful. Further, indigenization of technology, developing new technology. If you remember, there was one technology by the name of 3D printing. There is a saying in Hindi, कुएं का मेंढक. These are those technologies जो seasonal होती. Now, 3D printing came, 3D printing went away. Today, you are talking about augmented reality, you're talking about virtual reality, you are talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning, you are talking about various aspects associated with that. You are talking about big data, for example, but not about 3D printing because it was a one-off technology and it just went away. But you cannot predict that for any technological advancement, and you will have to realize that UPSC tends to pick up on these things and ask questions accordingly. So you will have to cover achievements and scientific developments in that manner, that you are also covering space and space related issues, IT sector related issues. They have already given you the broad contours of science and tech syllabus. IT sector, space sector. IT includes your issues related to 5G networking, your fiber network, and various other aspects. Then space technology, particularly the problem, for example, there is a problem with respect to space junk. How to manage that? It is a problem and it is something that can be asked. Computers, higher efficiency computing, supercomputing, all these aspects will be covered. Robotics, nanotech. Someone delivering this session today is a master's individual with his research work and thesis submitted on nanotechnology. I had created nanoparticles, carbon nanotubes particularly, from natural sources, something which takes crores and crores of rupees. I did it in hundreds of rupees, not thousands, hundreds of rupees. And I'm telling you this, that you should wait for this nanotech session that I will be delivering. Biotechnology and related issues to intellectual property rights. IPR rights are a bit confusing for all those students who are not from legal background. But given that your mentor is from legal background, I will make sure that they are as simple and as crisp as they can be. Product patent, process patent, the difference was asked by UPSC, I think in 2017 or 2018 prelims examination. And the kind of question that it was directly from my classes. I will tell you that. I would not call it directly from my classes because I had to cover that topic, and it was certainly that UPSC was supposed to ask that question, and of course, I was supposed to cover that topic. It is not a matter of pride, but it is a matter of due diligence that every mentor should also follow. That whenever we say that this was from class, it is a sense of pride associated with it. But when I say this, it is with due diligence. The fact that we have to cover certain things in a certain manner, and when we realize that yes, we were covering things in the certain manner, the way UPSC would ask them, then we realize that we were on the right track. Because there is no point in saying कि भाई मैंने जो टॉपिक आज करवाया था वो 3 साल पहले यूपीएससी ने पूछ लिया था. ऐसा नहीं होता है। जो चीज क्लास में हो रही है वो चीज आगे चलकर यूपीएससी पूछ रही है, एक तरीके से पूछ रही है चाहे अलग तरीके से पूछ रही है, इट इज बेसिकली टेलिंग यू दैट इफ यू आर फॉलोइंग अ स्ट्रैटेजी एज अ मेंटोर फॉर स्टूडेंट्स देन यू आर फॉलोइंग द राइट स्ट्रैटेजी, दैट इज इट। इतना है बस। एंड दैट ऑल्सो यू हैव टू revamp just the way, guys, let me tell you one thing, something that you would never have guessed. You and us, we are in the same boat. You have to cover things that we make you cover, and we have to make you cover things the manner in which UPSC demands. And in the way UPSC asks questions, we have to develop your acumen and also make sure that you are following things in the right fashion. All right. If you like what I said, make sure to hit the like button as well. Now, further, the syllabus is not over. Some things that we will be covering: conservation, environmental pollution, degradation, environmental impact assessment, all these things, along with various acts, the Air Pollution Act, the Water Pollution Act, and so on and so forth. Linkages between development and the spread of extremism. How can you reduce the spread of extremism with respect to development? Now, of course, the Kerala story movie is a bridge between extremism and secularism and various other aspects. So it is a direct indirect linkage which can be created between GS1 and GS3. Further, role of external state, which is basically state outside the state of India, and non-state actors relating to your various organizations and NGOs, and even including non-state actors that have no linkages with the government. That means not just the NGOs. People tend to confuse it with NGOs. Non-state actors are those actors that are accurately, to be precise, they are working against the state itself. For example, terrorist organizations, various extremist organizations that are pursuing their dreams to topple the state and creating challenges to internal security, challenges to internal security through communication networks, role of media and social networking sites in internal security challenges. So this topic is related to internal security. When we will be covering the topic of internal security, then I shall be bringing important and relevant information from the last 1.5 2 years that will you will be able to utilize in your mains examination. Today I have brought agriculture particularly that I will be discussing, and it will not, hopefully it will not be over. When I say hopefully, it means I want to cover in things in more details in the upcoming sessions as well. Make sure to follow each and every session, guys. If you don't follow them, अभी थोड़ा मुझे पता है कि समय लग रहा है, पर इसको देख लो, सुन लो, समझ में आ जाएगा तो बहुत आसान हो जाएगा. Basics of cyber security, money laundering and its prevention, security challenges, their management in border areas, linkages of organized crime, terrorism. There are 3 reports you might not have heard of. There are 3 second ARC reports on terrorism. 3 reports, three. One defines terrorism, another talks about combating terrorism, another talks about financing of terrorism. So, one based on definition, we will be discussing those reports. Another based on your combating terrorism, how to combat terrorism. The third one talks about financing terrorism, how to stop the financing, not about how to open up avenues of further investment models into terrorism. No, how to stop the financing of terrorism and what should be the approach, and various roles of FATF and various other agencies and organizations have been discussed in this particular report. I will be covering all of these things when we will be discussing this. So my approach is to take up all these topics. जैसे जैसे मैंने पॉइंट्स बनाया हुआ है ना, ये सारे, इन सभी पॉइंट्स को एक एक स्टेप में मैं कवर करूंगा आप लोगों के साथ, एक एक सिंगल क्लास के अंदर आपके साथ कवरेज होगी. So let's begin with today's topic, and that is Sri Lanka's IMF bailout. This happened in September last year. Now, you know this as a matter of fact that Pakistan particularly Sri Lanka, particularly the Indian neighbors, they are facing certain economic problems. Howsoever strong friendly relations and sarcasm and pun intended there that we have with our neighboring countries, we have to realize that as Indians or as a neighboring country, there can be economic impacts of countries around us facing these economic problems. No doubt, we can be an island in the ocean of economic disparity. We can see growth and development otherwise as well. But that does not mean that there will be no repercussions at all of these nations flailing. We have export import trade relations with these nations, so we have to make sure that they do not basically dwindle. All right, now particularly Sri Lanka. Now Sri Lanka has reached a preliminary agreement with IMF in the last year, and it was for about 2.9 billion US dollars. Now, IMF lending, how will it help not just Sri Lanka, but how does it help various nations? So, our approach here is to understand the role of IMF, which is basically a multilateral financial institution. इसका IR related concept आप अंशुम सर की क्लास में देख लेंगे, but what I am going to be covering is the economic aspect. So IMF lending is given to, otherwise the government was actually a monopolist or was having a direct control of matters. So when you liberalize, you do two things. What do you do? Number one, you deregulate. This happens in liberalization. The first thing that happens is you deregulate. The second thing, guys, please make sure that you keep making notes out of it. Deregulate ke baad, there is second thing that happens, and that is vacate. What do you do? The government has to vacate the premises. It has to create room for the private sector or other individual actors. It has to not do things that it was doing otherwise. For example, if you talk about the initial phase of India's economy when we got independence in 1950s particularly, Indian government was making every single thing, and every single thing, the quantifiable regulations were there. There was a limit on the production in 1950s, particularly pursuing the 1956 industrial policy. There was a limit on the production levels. There was a limit on the type of product that could be offered, the limit and extent of production. Everything was regulated. Then we started pursuing deregulation. Deregulation is an important aspect of liberalization. Now, this is one thing. Liberalization is one thing that IMF expects. It also asks you in a very orderly manner, it asks you to make sure that you open the doors of economy so that private investments from abroad can also happen. And that is where the structural adjustment policy basically takes a turn towards globalization. So LPG reforms are nothing but a structured approach towards SAP, that is structural adjustment policy. Now, and that being said, India's 1991 reforms were not only associated with IMF's structural adjustment policy, it was also apart from that that India was actually following a lot of other things. The second, let me just confirm if everything is working fine. Yep, all is well. Had to refresh. आप लोगों की चैट भी देखनी जरूरी है भाई. एक बार प्लीज मेक श्योर दैट यू मेंशन योर names and that you're present in the chat section so that we get a good idea, है ना? It's not a lecture per se, it is an interaction through YouTube live. Make sure to be a part of it. अच्छा. Now, Having understood this structural adjustment policy, IMF financing basically facilitates a more gradual and a carefully considered adjustment. It is not like World Bank. World Bank seems to be more like the movie Dayavan. It thinks less, but World Bank has a more hands-on approach. When I say hands-on, World Bank is involved in implementing certain policies, certain infrastructural projects directly. They have teams which will engage with the governments. IMF asks you to change the policy and then allows you to pursue those policies. Changes the policy with you and then asks you to pursue those policies. World Bank will make sure that whatever money is being spent, it is spent in the right fashion and it is a hands-on approach. So it is two different approaches trying to target various economies in the world, particularly those economies that are weakened because of various reasons. Now, IMF IMF utilizes various lending instruments. Now, these instruments have been tailored to different types of balance of payment crisis or requirements that various nations will face, and based on that, the specific circumstances that can be diverse as well. All IMF members, they are eligible to all members. All members, they are eligible to access the funds resources available in the GRA accounts. General resources account on non-concessional terms. Percentages that have been fixed, they are fixed. You will have to be going through the normal route. There is no concession offered on the interest rates here. So GRA is general. Then IMF also provides concessional financial support through poverty reduction and growth trust. Now, currently the interest rates are zero. Around June 2021, the interest rates were brought down to 0%. Now, which is better tailored for diversity and needs of low income countries. So, generally, this is given to low income countries. Now, historically, it has been seen that for emerging and advanced market economies, when they are in crisis, the bulk of IMF assistance is provided through standby arrangements, SBAs. These standby arrangements are to address short term or potential balance of payment problems. These standby arrangements further go for structural adjustment policies. The standby arrangement is money. The policy, the SAP policy, is to change the policy of that nation so that the SBAs are actually implemented in the right fashion. Further, standby credit facility is there, which serves a similar purpose for low income countries. But this facility is not at zero coupon, not at 0%. Then extended fund facility, EFF, and उसी के साथ associated extended credit facility. Fund facility is basically not a loan. Credit facilities, they are loans. Further, to help and prevent or mitigate any kind of crisis, boost market confidence during periods of crisis like COVID, for example, you have the flexible credit line and also the precautionary and liquidity credit line. So these are multiple major instruments that IMF utilizes. Further, you also have one more, which is rapid financing instrument and rapid credit facility. The word credit itself means that it is a cut and dried loan. One. Financing means where you have certain stakeholderism. Here you will have stakeholderism. So this is the difference. So whenever you find these terminologies, you should not get confused. This is relevant for your prelims examination as well if you are preparing for next year. But yes, you should know these various credit facilities that IMF provides to various individuals. IMF also provides 0% loans, and it is through, if you notice, we had covered this poverty reduction and growth trust. So PRGT is basically used for 0%, or rather tailored made for diversity needs. And also covered now, everything covered. Also, differently, the ECF and the EFF. ECF is Extended Credit Facility, and the Extended Fund Facility, that is also for medium term support towards low income countries. इसी basis पर आपने इसको cover करना है. Once you understand the purpose of the fund, then you would realize that it is better, it is easier to mention them when you're writing answers. When you're writing answers, there are many suggestive measures. There are many suggestive measures that you have to mention. These are the suggestive measures or the facts that you otherwise miss in the suggestive measures. इनको note कर लीजिएगा. For every detail, for any PDF that you require, every single thing, you have to go in the description box. All the links that there are, you have to follow those links so that you get access to all the aspects of these lectures. Now, further, let's move to the next topic, and that is status report on India's external debt 2021-2022. Now, this is the 28th edition of this report, which has been released by Department of Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance. External Debt Management Unit, EDMU, is the unit that gives out this particular report. And this report, as such, is very important, not just for prelims, but also for mains. Because you can mention a lot of data and information in your introduction. You remember that IBC approach? क्लीशे हो गया है, बहुत बार बोल चुके हैं इसको, फिर भी इसको फॉलो जरूर कीजिएगा. इसको छोड़ेंगे तो लाइफ झिंगालाला नहीं रहेगी. इसको यूज कर डाला तो लाइफ झिंगालाला. ओके, नाउ India's external debt is at 620.7 billion US dollars as of end March 2022, grew around 2% from 574 billion US dollars from last year. This 2%, it was dominated by US dollar, Indian rupee denominated debt. So these are the two largest categories of debt instruments that we are using. We are using debt through US dollars. We are also indebted through Indian rupee denominated debt. What does that mean? When the government issues bonds in the international market, that set of bonds is basically a debt instrument. If those debt instruments are denominated in Indian rupee, then certainly it is going to be a wonderful thing. One reason, then you do not have to move out your pool of resources in foreign currency. Number two, it also helps you increase the acceptance level of Indian rupee. That also happens. So around 31.2% of the total debt that India has incurred in the last couple of years, or rather in 2021 and 2022, the portion was divided into US dollars and Indian rupee denominated debt, which is 31.2%. Further, external debt as a ratio of GDP. What does that mean? It means external debt to GDP ratio. We already have had a question on debt to GDP ratio, but this is an external debt to GDP ratio, has similar explanation, but it is only the external component of the debt that is being taken with respect to GDP, and it has fell marginally. The external debt has gone down from 21.2% to 19.9%. So around 1.2% के आसपास का 1.3% के आसपास का ड्रॉप आया है. Foreign currency reserves as a ratio to external debt, they stood slightly lower at 97.8%, which means that there are lesser foreign currency reserves as compared to external debt. So your reserves are dwindling, but not to that extent because it is 97.8% still. So you have money, but that money is not 100.6%, which was a year ago. Given that there have been major fluctuations in rupee dollar exchange rates, there have been a decline in our foreign currency reserves, and RBI is actually working on that. Further, commercial borrowings with respect to various companies and various private sector economies, the NRI deposits, short term trade credit, and multilateral loans. Short-term trade credit is that credit that is followed in pursuit of some trade, exchange of goods or services, and it is for shorter period of time. And based on that, a credit line is extended where, for example, a manufacturer of a good in some other country, when he is to export some material to India, for example, Indian Indian trader, the importer from India, he will have access to some short-term credit of for that particular trade. That aspect is also a part of debt. And RBI's guidelines say that if there is any exchange of goods or services which is unpaid for more than 90 days, more than 90 days. You don't have to remember 90 days, given that RBI can change this timeline and can change this time period. ये चेंज होता रहता है 60 डेज 90 डेज ये 30 60 90 क्योंकि ये मंथली वाइज चलता है तो ये उस हिसाब से चेंज होता रहता है so if any transfer of goods has gone beyond 90 days being unpaid guys very important तो उसको आरबीआई एक क्रेडिट के तौर पर कंसिडर कर लेता है इट इज कन्वर्टेड इनटू अ डेट it is then accounted as a debt on the person who is supposed to is liable to pay back and then it is accounted in that manner जो हमारे अकाउंट बुक्स हैं जो आरबीआई मेंटेन करते हैं बैलेंस ऑफ पेमेंट मैनुअल के अकॉर्डिंगली द बैलेंस ऑफ पेमेंट मैनुअल sixth edition as far as IMF is concerned. These are the things the Excel sheet is prepared by RBI. Based on that, वो उसको credit की line में डाल देंगे. Further, as of March end 2022, sovereign external debt (SED). What is sovereign external debt? It is the debt by the sovereign, debt upon the sovereign. It has amounted to 130.7 billion US dollars. Many people they have a confusion that whether or not private individuals' debt from abroad or private individuals lending towards abroad is it covered or not. It is covered as a part of your balance of payment manual. अगर trade in goods and services हो सकता है तो external debt और external commercial borrowings के अंदर private sector को क्यों नहीं incorporate किया जाएगा. तो ये this is something that people tend to have a very astute and a very wrong impression. They think that only the government loans are to be considered when it comes to international line of credit and everything. Now, 130 बिलियन यूएस डॉलर्स के आसपास हमारा सॉवरेन एक्सटर्नल डेट रहा है. It has increased by 17% and additional allocation of special drawing rights. They had supplemented that. This happened during 2021, 2022. So we are able to manage more money from IMF now. SDRs, they have risen from 22, rose to 23 odd billion US dollars from earlier on 5.5 billion US dollars, almost four times. Further, FPI holdings, foreign portfolio investment holdings of government securities slid to 19.5 billion US dollars. In fact, we have been wanting that this volatility of foreign portfolio investments in government securities should be reduced. It should move towards more stable form of investment, which is foreign direct investment. That is fine. This slight decline or slight slid of sliding of this particular section should not be too worrisome as compared to the increasing sovereign debt should be, as compared to the decline in foreign currency reserves of RBI. That should be more worrisome. Non-sovereign, which means not by the government, basically the external debt is estimated at 490 billion US dollars, growth of 6.1%. There are two ways to look at it. One, you can think of it that yes, we are exploring more avenues of access to credit. India's private sector is being multinationalized. Number two, the second aspect is that we are now more dependent on external sources. And the more that we are dependent on external sources, the more we will be influenced by external sources. No doubt there should be globalization, no doubt there should be certain aspects that should be covered, but we will have to make sure that every single penny that is being brought into India, it is brought with the right intention and the right purpose. All right. Now, having done that, having understood this report, let's move further to the next topic. But wait, hold up, hold up, hold up, because we have to cover certain questions. I have brought a couple of questions for you guys from the last year's paper. Now, this question paper that you see is basically from GS3 2022 mains. So, this is mains 2022 GS3 paper, right? I have put screenshots of all these questions from UPSC website. I've brought these questions. Let's try to solve them. If you are from Hindi medium, you can use these questions. If you are from English medium, keep watching. Why is question starts from a why? Why is public-private partnership required in infrastructural projects? पीपीपी क्यों चाहिए इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चरल प्रोजेक्ट्स के अंदर? Why पूछा है? The reason for PPP. What would you write? The benefits of PPP? No. The purpose and intent of PPP has to be mentioned. Further, examine the role of PPP model in redevelopment of railway stations in India. It is talking about 150 words. How much would you write in 150 words? That is where we will have to accept this as a challenge. You already know about everything with respect to PVP. Imagine that. But still, how to concise that into 150 words will be a challenge. So that is why if you follow introduction, body and conclusion, if you were to talk about introduction, you talk about introduction in the manner of the first portion of this particular question. And you will spend around out of 150, you will spend around 60 to 70 odd words that will be spent here. And it will cover the introduction alone. Then main body and conclusion. The conclusion itself would require around 20 words, one at least one single statement to end the answer. You know, further, the body would require around 50 odd words. So that will cover the entire lot of 150 words. So focus in the introduction, focus on the reason for PPP requirement for infrastructural projects. You have to rephrase the question to realize what the question has asked. If you practice this for the next 1 year, for example, if you practice this for the next couple of months, for example, if you are appearing for 2023, then certainly, I assure you, if you follow this for 5 papers, 6 papers, you write answers to those papers, I assure you, you will be managing good answers by the time your mains comes. Further, is inclusive growth. Now, notice one thing. This is investment models, basically. One. Number two, inclusive growth. Direct questions on the keywords that are mentioned in the syllabus. Inclusive growth. Is it possible under market economy? So they are talking about capitalism and its special case. I hope you know that market economy is not the same as capitalism, is not the same as free market economy, is not the same as laissez-faire economy. These all are different terminologies. All of them are different terminologies. You follow any standard book, you would be knowing the difference between all these terminologies. Now, state the significance of financial inclusion in achieving economic growth in India. First, you have to be general as to how is it possible to gather economic development or how to have inclusive growth. What is inclusive growth? What is inclusive growth according to you? You can mention that in the chat section. Inclusive growth, if you talk to me, I would say that it is with respect to having the benefits of development or the benefits of growth reaching every single individual. Now, there can be process or procedural discrepancies or inefficiencies, but that should not be the reason of exclusion. That should not be the reason of exclusion. I hope you understand that. Based on that, UPSC had asked this question. Now, further, they have linked it with market economy, which is by principle and definition working on the same principle. It is using the theory of percolation that the benefits of market economy will seep downwards and everybody will flourish. But that seeping down, the procedure as such is not really efficient. Why? Because the ones who hold that, that elixir of growth, the money that they hold, they don't really allow that money to percolate downwards. There is very little downward movement, and that approach as such is a very socialistic approach in principle, and it is based on the agenda that resources are common. It is a part of not universal but national commons. Let's presume at national level पर national commons का part. Based on that national commons, you have certain resources that are being utilized by certain individuals, and even if the money is theirs, the risk is theirs, and the efforts are theirs, there is still a certain level of societal or social implications and responsibilities that are to be catered to, which is basically redundant in market economy. Because they are redundant in market economy, is it possible to have inclusive growth in such an economy? Yes, it is possible. It is possible. But then there are supposed to be certain changes that have to happen. Here, if you include Amartya Sen's approach, if you include Gandhian approach, you would realize that you are much better off. You would be incorporating certain thinkers, common thinkers. Gandhi and Amartya Sen, they are not two technical thinkers. They are not someone that you will be only studying in your optional subjects. You will otherwise be studying them as well. Hai na? So you utilize their approaches. You write a very good answer with respect to the first portion. The second portion is a very simplistic one. State the significance. All you have to do is state, mention the significance of financial inclusion in achieving economic growth in India. Here you can utilize the economic survey from 2021, where it had talked about inclusive growth. There was a chapter on inclusive growth on the in the economic survey of 2021 after COVID. वो वाला, राइट? बड़ी देर से बोल रहा हूँ, थोड़ा सा पानी पी लें, आप लोग भी पी लो. आप तो चलो सुन रहे हैं, अब कान में पानी मत डाल लेना. Bad joke, I know. But let's move forward. If you notice the first question, the second question, and now the third question, based on direct keywords, the public distribution system in India. What are the major challenges? Simple question. What are the major challenges of PDS in India? Simple question, right? How can it be made effective and transparent? Again, simple question. Effective, not efficient, effective. Number one. Number two, transparent. So that means that there is a problem of accountability, there is a problem of control, there is a problem of corruption and corrupt practices in this system. You have to discuss how to make it transparent, keeping in mind कि अगर transparent नहीं है तो ये problem आती है, और transparency ना होने से इस वजह से ये problem आ जाती है, इस वजह से problem आ जाती है. Based on those problems, you have to write down the solutions only, not discuss the problems, because you only have 150 words. That is the reason. So stick to what the question has been asking. Further, elaborate the scope and significance of food processing industry in India. Direct questions were there in mains. If you notice in prelims, the question paper was quite difficult. Prelims 2023, the question paper was quite difficult. And if you notice the mains examination, it is quite plain and simple. All you require is to stand out with your answers. That is it. That is the strategy. That is the approach. If you follow that, certainly possible. Question number 5. Increase in life expectancy in the country has led to newer health challenges. What are these health challenges in the community? What are those challenges? पूछ ही लिया उन्होंने. पहली तो स्टेटमेंट थी. स्टेटमेंट के बाद क्वेश्चन क्या है? What are these challenges? What steps are needed to be taken to meet them, to make sure that you overcome these challenges? So, what are the challenges and how do you overcome them? So, that is the simple question. Life expectancy is a good thing. Increase of life expectancy, good thing. But there are challenges. If life expectancy increases, to give you one example of a challenge, it will be a case where more and more people will stay alive till the end of their lives. Of course, till the end of their lives at around 70, 80, 90 years of age. It will be a burden on the exchequer to maintain the social benefits of these individuals. So these are the challenges, but how do you make sure that the challenges are met? For example, it should not only be the efforts of the government, it should also be the efforts of the individuals who are actually the family members of these individuals, the elderly, the senior citizens. The the hedonistic approach towards social security of senior citizens is actually a very bad approach. It is not just bad in spirituality, bad in religion, it is bad in all aspects of life. Because when you are undermining the respect and when you are not considering the relevance of senior citizens in your life, then you are forgetting the fact that the wheel of time is running. You are also going to be taking their place. And whatever you expect right now that you should receive in the future when you are their age, then certainly that is how you will have to treat them. These individuals, दादी नानी दादा नाना, सब ये जो रिश्ते हैं, these relations are there to guide you, to mentor you. You should utilize their wisdom. There can be some astute wisdom that they have based on the society that they have lived in. Of course, now you cannot ask them कि दादी दादी नया आईफोन आया है उसके ये फीचर का क्या यूटिलाइजेशन है. You will not be asking them this. They have lived in a different era. But you can certainly ask them certain aspects of sociology, of religion, a right form of religion, the right manner to pursue anything. So, the right way to pursue things, how to overcome certain challenges in your own life. When you are facing mental challenges and when somebody is facing difficulties in their mental health, they can always help. Now, yes, these are the benefits, but we are not to talk about the benefits. We are to talk about the challenges. Out of pocket expenditure with respect to health sector will increase. Number one. Number two, you will have more and more individuals that you will have to take care of. India's economy is right now going through a demographic transition, but that demographic transition soon, based on life expectancy, will turn out into a demographic disaster if we want you not utilize the benefits right now. Number two, we will have more and more population converting into the elderly population. If we are the most populous country in the world, then we will have the most population of elderly. In fact, it is true. In absolute figures, we have the maximum number of elderly and dependents in our country, and that number will increase. What will be the impact? What will be the challenges? We have to discuss this. 150 words question. Then further, each year a large amount of plant material cellulose is deposited on the planet's surface. What are the natural processes this cellulose undergoes before yielding carbon dioxide, water, and other end products? So what are the things that it goes through? They are asking you the process. This is related to environment. This is a plain and simple question on ecology. Plain and simple question. And if you cover this, you notice there have been reports actually, and this is an indirect question from those reports. Direct question would have been with respect to when the permafrost frost is thawing and it is releasing greenhouse gases and everything. That would have been a direct question. But yes, how does plant, sorry, how does plant material when decaying? It releases carbon dioxide. What will be the impact? What are the processes? A plain and simple ecology related question, right? Process has been asked. कोई इसके अंदर करंट अफेयर का मिक्सअप नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है. If you notice, this is the sixth question that we are discussing. Have we in any question, apart from the fifth question, have we in any question actually thought of current affairs? You, no doubt you will be utilizing current affairs, but that does not undermine the fact that these questions are generic. They are evergreen. If you practice right, then you will be able to write down answers to these questions. The approach towards mains, apart from realizing what is the kind of process that you have to follow for covering various topics, is very simple. Keep practicing. Practice answer writing. That is it, guys. इसको कर डाला तो फिर से लाइव झिंगा लाला, है ना? अच्छा, पानी पीना, रुको. I hope everything is working fine at your end. If it is, please make sure to mention that in the chat section. कुछ भी पूछना है आपको, कुछ भी जानना है, so make sure that you mention it in the chat section. Okay. Even if you are watching this session in a recorded format, use the comment section. I will respond to the comments and every single individual's doubts will be resolved. Now, seventh question, what does it say? Discuss in detail the photochemical smog, emphasizing its formation, how is it formed, its effects and mitigation. This is a static question. Explain the 1999 Gothenburg Protocol. Smog was a part of current affairs as such, and based on the current affairs, the 1999 Gothenburg Protocol was in use, and based on that, the question has been asked. This is a current affairs based question. Our target here, I will be discussing the target once we cover the entire lot of questions and then work on the answers. Acha. Explain the mechanism and occurrence of cloudbursts in the context of Indian subcontinent. Issues and challenges in northern part of the country, Himalayas, for example, whenever cloudbursts happen, what is the impact? And with respect to the Indian subcontinent, notice this. Discuss two recent examples. You have to discuss recent examples. You'll have to make sure that you keep space for 50 words for these examples because you have to discuss them, not just mention. And further, this is, of course, current affairs related question. Then further, moving to the next question, and that is discuss. I keep ending up reading the Hindi version. संगठित अपराधों के प्रकारों की चर्चा करें. Organized crime. Discuss different types of organized crime. Can be utilized through ARC reports. ARC reports. Then you have various United Nation efforts. There are multiple organizations working towards organized crime, or rather against organized crime. Discuss, rather describe the linkages between terrorists and organized crime that exists at national, transnational level. If I am not wrong, let me just confirm. Just give me a couple of seconds. Just a couple of seconds. If I'm not wrong, no, it happened later. That Furzy series on YouTube, sorry, on Amazon Prime. If you remember that series, है ना? In that series, organized crime was being targeted basically, and understanding organized crime, basically the kind of questions that can be asked from that portion. I think that it can be the reason, it can be one of the reasons why this question was asked. Wonderful series it was, but still, है ना? अच्छा. So organized crime, its linkages with terrorists and also at national and transnational levels. So levels, national and transnational, not to, it is basically to finish off the question, but the key word and key phrase here is OC, organized crime and terrorism, how it is interlinked. The linkage has to be discussed. Further, what are the maritime security challenges in India? Maritime security challenges. This is a direct question with respect to your security challenges. Direct question. If you notice, we have covered the question, the entire syllabus. We have discussed the syllabus. There are direct questions from there. Discuss the organizational, technical, and procedural. Organizational, one. Technical, two. Procedural, three. Initiatives taken to improve maritime security. Has there been any new organization that has been created? Has there been any revamping of organization? Any technical development and advancement that is being utilized? Addition to the fleet, Indian Coast Guard, etc. What are the procedural initiatives that will happen now if you catch any, any, say, any pirate is caught on Indian waters, how will we proceed? Every aspect is actually to be covered here. Now, let me see if everything is working fine. Yep, yep, it is. Just give me a second. Yep. So, in recent times, basically, economic growth in the recent past has been led by increase in labor productivity. You have to explain this statement. Economic growth in the recent past has been led by increase in labor productivity. What does that mean? It means that increase in, or rather economic growth as such, is not coming from increased investments. It is coming from labor productivity. It is associated with the fact that we were running an economy at suboptimal levels. So the labor productivity is increasing. This is directly in sync with various reports from ILO. You utilize International Labour Organization reports, write down the answer. This is a very simple question. If you have understood the topic, see, मेंस को क्रैक करने की एक ही चाबी है. आप एक टॉपिक को उठाइए, ऐसे उठा लिए एक टॉपिक. अगर ये बाल जितना पतला है, इसकी खाल उतारनी शुरू कीजिए. खाल को उतारते 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 जब वो आसपास आपके ढेर लग जाएगा ना बाल की खाल का, उस बाल की खाल में से ही आपका आंसर निकलने वाला है. ट्रस्ट मी. You realize that every single topic that you are covering, every single topic, everything that you are pursuing right now, and you are understanding it to the core, वो मेंस निकलवाएगा. If you remember that movie from Chandni Chowk to China, there was a dialogue. मुझे उन 1000 मूव से खतरा नहीं है जो तुमने एक बार प्रैक्टिस की है. मुझे उस एक मूव से खतरा है जो तुमने 1000 बार प्रैक्टिस की. So you'll have to realize that this is a practice for your brain where you will have to keep pushing yourself to realize every single aspect of the topic. ये है तो ऐसा क्यों है, ये है तो ऐसा क्यों है, ये है तो ऐसा क्यों है. The why aspect, हर क्यों why काय को का जवाब होता है, provided you are a UPSC aspirant. And this is expected of you from UPSC as well. Make sure that you have the answers. All right. When you discuss things with your friends, all those individuals who are preparing for UPSC, वो वाले friends की बात कर रहा हूँ, आपके और दोस्तों की बात नहीं कर रहा हूं, उनसे तो चर्चा भी मत कीजिएगा. When you are discussing things with your UPSC friends, when you are discussing various aspects of certain policies and reports and various aspects of Indian society, India's economy, India's industrial sector with experts in those fields, if you were to talk to me, I am not a self-proclaimed one, but I have delivered various courses, and I've worked on various aspects of industrial relations, public administration, management, and labor laws, all the plethora. So I know what they are talking about. They're not just talking about labor productivity. They are saying as against enhanced economic growth based on economic investments. So private sector में investments नहीं आ रही हैं, economic growth. There is an increased demand. That increased demand is not being met out on the basis of increased investments. Now you have to explain the statement on these grounds, suggest the growth pattern that will lead to creation of more jobs without compromising labor productivity. अब आप ऐसा नहीं है कि आप लेबर प्रोडक्टिविटी को कम कर देंगे and based on that you will enhance the, you cannot be focusing on reducing the labor productivity. So without compromising this labor productivity, this is a good thing. But the problem here is that this is the only thing that is fueling economic growth. This will not sustain because you are not working on capacity building. What is happening? Let me give you a very simple example. And this is a very funny example. Let me see if I have space here. Space is here. Acha. Let's see if you have, say, a box and you have this insect. Okay. This insect has to jump. Now, the insect was jumping only to this extent, and you start feeding him good food and you start giving him good energy and good vibes and everything, and it starts jumping, and now it is reaching at this level, and slowly and steadily at this level. Now, what you are seeing is increasing productivity. Increasing productivity. Productivity is increasing. Now, it can be labor productivity or any other kind. So, this productivity is increasing, but the box is still the same. When you talk about capacity building, you are moving from this size box to this size box so that the environment also expands. That is not happening. For that is the reason that UPSC had asked this question. Okay. Now, moving on to the next question, the 12th question. Now it is 250 words. This was also 250 words. They know that you need more more words to finish off such questions. Acha. Further, do you think this is the directive that is given to you? Do you think India will meet 50% of its energy needs from renewable sources by 2030? Justify your answer. Plain and simple topic of climate change. Financing in climate change. Move towards greener and bluer economies. How much of data and information do you need here? You have access to everything. In fact, I will make sure that when we in one class I will cover climate change in detail, in depth. I'll make sure that this is something that you will be able to write answers to in a very brilliant manner. Further, what are the main bottlenecks in upstream and downstream processes of marketing of agricultural products? Hey, mere Ram. Every single question has directly come from the syllabus. Every single question. There are only few questions, let me tell you, and be very careful about it as well. There are at least 1 to 2 questions in the entire mains entire examination, where you will find something that you have never heard of. One or maximum two, not more than that. Everything else, and even in these 1 or 2 questions, you will be able to manage certain things. अगर आपको कुछ basic भी आता है ना, तो you will be able to manage to write certain things. But rest of the paper, you have knowledge about all these topics. The only thing is your brain is not wired to write answers in this manner. We are still thinking of UPSC in the manner that you used to think your paper setter would ask questions in your first class, your second class, your third class. बचपन में ही ये आदत डल गई है कि जो पढ़ा उसमें से आ जाना चाहिए. Whatever has been read should be the source of asking questions. जो बुक में दिया हुआ है वो पूछ लेना चाहिए. Whatever the coaching industry, the coaching institutions are providing you, that should be asked. No, you should be pursuing mentors and guides who give you that wisdom to approach any topic that you read so that you can utilize them in your mains examination. Based on that, what are the bottlenecks upstream and downstream processes के अंदर marketing of agricultural products? So upstream and downstream problems directly from the syllabus. What is the integrated farming system? I told you direct questions come from here. How is it helpful to small and marginal farmers in India? You will have to use the NAFIS reports, NAFIS survey. You will have to use the agriculture survey from 2015. Use the references and try utilizing the analytical aspects of those reports and surveys. I have brought certain surveys. I will not be able to finish it off in today's session. In the next session on Sunday, we will continue this, है ना? तो उसको उस टाइम पे कवर कर लेंगे. अच्छा, understanding these systems, they have been in news, they are current affairs based. This is current affairs based. This is current affairs based. This is current affairs based. Every single thing here on this particular slide right now is current affairs based. Further, launched on 25th December 2021, James Webb Telescope has been much, in the news since then. What are its unique features? What makes it superior to its predecessor space telescope? Okay. What are the key goals of this mission? What potential benefits does it hold for human race? Basically, the James Webb Telescope mission, every aspect has been asked. Now, if you notice, UPSC was not required to mention, it was not required to mention any of these things, but it did. That means every single thing that you are looking at, every single thing that you're looking at is based out of current affairs. Now, we will be pursuing these current affairs. So once you have realized this, and same thing happens for all these questions, let's move further towards various aspects of Indian agriculture where relevant information of important reports and summaries of those reports with respect to agriculture survey, the NAFIS survey, the agriculture census, we will be discussing. Now, one thing that you will have to realize is this data that I'm sharing right now is based on the recent updates. Make sure that do not go beyond, you should never go beyond 2 years of data. मैक्सिमम 2 इयर्स का विंडो रहता है. 2 साल से ज्यादा का डेटा, पुराना डेटा मत यूटिलाइज कीजिएगा. इकोनॉमिक चेंजेस आ चुके होते हैं एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट देयर आर वेरियस इंस्टांसेस which have actually changed in the analysis. तो एनालिटिकल अप्रोच में चेंजेस आ जाते हैं फॉर दैट रीजन. नाउ वन थिंग, 15% शेयर है and it has declined in India's economy. The share of agriculture has declined over the recent past. Around 14-15% इतना चल रहा है, and it is expected that 50% of the workforce, if it is working in agriculture sector, then certainly the share of agriculture in the Indian economy should also be around 50%. If not 50%, at least 35-40%. The kind of labor productivity that we were asking of in the mains examination last year, it is directly associated with this as well. But their economic growth की बात हो रही थी. So our labor productivity is limited and there is a huge scope of enhancement of labor productivity. Further, the dependency of population, around 3/4 even today in India's families, out of the entire lot of India's families, 3/4 are still dependent on rural incomes. Majority of them, rural poor, are actually utilizing agriculture today. So majority of India's poor, around 770 million individuals, around 70% they are found in rural areas. And based on that, there are challenges with respect to food security. Now, what are the major achievements that Indian agriculture sector has been able to take up? Ever since 1960s, we were asking for funds, we were asking for food. Now we are food surplus nation. One thing. Second, diversification towards horticulture crops has happened. This has happened ever since 2012 and 2013. After that, right now, 35% of the total value of crop output comes in the agriculture sector from horticulture crops. Moreover, there is also an increased investment in the fisheries sector. In fact, fisheries sector is the fastest growing sector in agriculture. It is the fastest growing sector and it has the maximum exports. In agriculture, maximum exports are coming from the fishery sector as well. We will be discussing the reports and data with respect to fishery sector also in the upcoming portion. Acha. Further, there is an enhanced importance given to allied activities, as I've told you, animal husbandry, fish production, livestock farming, and apart from that, you have marine agriculture, mariculture, and rooftop farming and various other allied activities they have happened, and cattle rearing and various other things. And they have Indian livestock sector itself has seen a growth of 6.6% in the last decade up till 2019. You can use this data. This can be used in your introduction. Further, changing dynamics of agricultural trade, it has been seen that with respect to the share in the global trade of agriculture and allied sectors from India with respect to the rest of the world, we have doubled from 1.1% in 2000 to 2.2% in 2018. Now, these achievements are there, but we have to understand that there are multiple challenges as well. Those challenges are also associated with the inclusivity of the progress. Just because we are talking about the rural poor, just because we are talking about the urban poor, just because we are discussing the bottom rung of India's demography, that does not mean that there are no inclusivity challenges in that portion of India's population. There are inclusivity challenges as well. In fact, as a matter of fact, you have marginal farmers, you have small farmers, you have medium sized land holding wale farmers, and then you have large land holding farmers. You will be surprised that 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 10, greater than equal to 10, for example, or greater than 10 rather. You know? So all these individual farmers, would you think that marginal farmers are at 1 hectares? No, the size of land holdings that they hold is on an average less than 0.5. That is, the marginal farmers are also in the bottom rung. Then small farmers, the average is less than 1.5. Similarly, it is less than 5 in medium. But large के अंदर तो क्या ही average निकालने large land holding वाले farmers. Now, what are the challenges? According to a recent report, you have small and scattered land holdings that also apply to small plots of lands, which makes it uneconomical. This data has been taken, this information and data has been taken from the agriculture census. Agriculture census 2015-2016. The next agriculture census was supposed to happen on in the year 2020. It did not happen, and even if it did, the relevance of the previous census is not undermined. The percentages, the data might change, but that does not undermine the analysis that the survey or the census has provided us. So you have small and fragmented land holdings, inferior quality of seeds are being used, which has reduced the crop yields. If you put in investments in the agriculture sector with respect to this, then certainly you will have growth. Delivery of high quality seeds is just as important as it is when you talk about processing of the food grains and various other crops. We do not have good superior seeds. That is not the case. They are actually out of the reach for majority of the farmers. Majority of the farmers cannot afford these superior quality seeds. Moreover, the suicidal seeds that we are utilizing, what does it do? these suicidal seeds by companies like Bayer, Monsanto, and various other individual multinational companies. These seeds are being infused into the economies, the emerging market economies, the agriculture economies, and these seeds basically give you a drop in yield. The yield drops after a certain number of seasons, maybe after one season or two season, immediately, abruptly. So you cannot utilize the seeds directly from the crop. You will have to procure more seeds from the company, because अगर company आपको seeds ऐसे दे दे जो perpetuate हो जाएंगे, then what would be the purpose of the product that the company has launched? Why would you purchase those seeds anymore? And that is why the company changes genetically these seeds. Genetic modification and genetic engineering happens at every stage. It is just that we are only talking about BT cotton, BT brinjal, and all the likes. But it is happening at almost every stage. Acha. Further, as regards to manures, fertilizers, and biocides, let's understand this. For hundreds of years, Indian soils have been used to produce crops with regard to with no regard for replenishment. Now the soils, their health, they are depleting. Now, as far as the data is concerned, I have put certain data with respect to fertilizers and manures, the kind of investment that have happened in the upcoming portion of this lecture. Moving towards the problems of irrigation, India is the second largest moistened country after China. Only one third of the crops production is irrigated. That means even though we have more access to more water available, the accessibility of that water is limited for various reasons. In a rainy climate like India, where rainfall is unpredictable, still you have most agricultural input coming from rain-fed farming. It is dryland farming, it is rain-fed farming. Agriculture itself is still most significant agricultural input. You still have inputs and investments in the agriculture sector. Here, the case in point is accelerated irrigations, benefits program. So accelerated not irrigations, irrigation benefits program. This was launched in 1990s, the later part of late 1990s. This was to accelerate irrigation related projects. Now, this program, this scheme as such, has been continued. And even today, you will find the reminiscence of this scheme in Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. The Yojana itself has cross linkages over various departments, be it the Department of Land Revenue, be it your Ministry of Agriculture, and various other aspects, including per drop, more crop, including AIBP, Integrated Watershed Management Program, so on and so forth. So it is a multi-pronged, multiple schemes conglomerated into a single umbrella scheme called Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. Now, based on that, based on that, let's move further. Lack of mechanization. We have problem of lesser investments, number one. Number two, less of mechanization. When it comes to mechanization, it is not economical for a farmer to purchase such machines. What does it mean? It means that the farmer's income from the farm or the allied activities as such, it is very difficult for a farmer to purchase machines like a thrasher, like a segregator, or a tractor, even for that matter. And given that there are fragmented land holdings, it is not really advisable for the farmer to pick up on mechanization. Indian agriculture is a labor intensive activity. Let me give you a data on that. The fact of the matter is that if you talk about female labor force participation rate, in urban areas it is around 26%. In rural areas, it is around 38%, more than the urban areas, which is more than the urban areas. The female labor force participation rate talks about the number of females in the working population where they are working out of the age group of 15 to around 58. If majority is working, this is not majority, this is not majority. So out of all the females in this age bracket, how many of them are actually working? How many of them are actually a part of the labor force? Now, it was realized by this ILO data on labor force participation rate and employment related data as well. This was a generic data. It did not talk about agriculture directly. It was talking about labor force participation rate. It mentioned, and this data is from 2018 or something, if I'm not wrong. It mentions that urban areas you have lesser females working, in rural areas you have more females working. You know what the reason is? The reason is labor intensive agriculture. Agriculture is not an activity of urban areas, it is an activity of rural areas, and that is the reason why you find more women participating in rural areas, because they are actually participating in their household activity of farming, which is being run on sustainable grounds, not on commercial grounds. So whatever they produce, they generally tend to utilize that. But based on the survey data, it is they are participating in the labor force, but their productivity is limited. They are unpaid family labor and all the challenges associated. But not to be worried too much about it, because the unpaid family labor is considerably a factor and a parameter to decide MSP. That is why. Moving further, there is weak marketing that happens. The downstream processes, they have certain challenges. You have seen the kind of question that they have asked. Further, poor storage infrastructure. So there is a problem with respect to storage as well as infrastructure of the storage facilities. Very recently, very recently, there was a report of bananas. Bananas. Now, there is a surge in supply of bananas in this country. One, we used to export bananas to Pakistan and various other neighboring countries. Two, banana production has increased, no doubt. But what has happened actually is investment and affordability. Two things. Investment and affordability towards access to various storage facilities. This has gone up, and that has increased the supply, because all the bananas that were otherwise kept in the cold storages and storage facilities, they are now available for supply in the market. And the surge in the supply is because the exports, they are dwindling because of the economic conditions of our neighboring partners. I told you when we were discussing the question paper and when we were discussing the syllabus, that you will have the impact of these things on India's economy as well. Now, there is a surge in the supply of bananas within the country. They are being utilized, no doubt. केले तो सब खा ही लेते हैं ना? Almost everybody eats banana. But the problem is with respect to various other things. गोलू सिंह राजपूत जी पूछ रहे हैं ये क्या है? This is basically UPSC unfiltered. अच्छा. Now, according to Parsec committee, it calculated that around 9.3% of the post-harvest losses, they were attributed to poor storage conditions alone. So around approximately 9.3% is approximately 1/10 of the losses that happen after the harvest. It happens because of lack of storage facilities or poor storage conditions alone, accounting approximately 6.6% of those losses. तो पुअर स्टोरेज कंडीशंस की अगर हम बात करें, स्टोरेज फैसिलिटीज नहीं है तो वो बात और है, बट स्टोरेज कंडीशंस खराब ना तो वो 6.6% ऑफ लॉसेस हो जाते हैं. It is a very important and a crucial aspect of agriculture. Inputs are there, but the efforts are not rewarded by outputs. And that is where the problem arises when it comes to sustaining agriculture, particularly with respect to farmers' income. Now, further, we keep making sure that you keep noting down the data that I am discussing. वो डेटा नोट डाउन करते रहो. नहीं देखा तो दोबारा से देखना, टाइम नोट कर लो, दोबारा से देख लेना. Now, low capital infusion is there. Inputs and investments are limited, given that we always detest privatization in agriculture, right? Further, the problems arising from all of this. There is an NCRB data, National Crime Records Bureau data, that reported that around 2,96,438 Indian farmers had committed suicide between 1995 and 2014. Around 19-20 years, almost 2 decades. More than 2 lakhs, let's call it 3 lakh, around 3 lakh individuals, they have committed suicide. Indian farmers committing suicide. This is not just productivity lost, this is not just labor lost, this is also a blow to an inclusive growth agenda that we have set out ever since that we have started working on agriculture as prime moving force. Ever since we've started working towards agriculture as a prime moving force of the economy, it should have been a major agenda, but this agenda is never picked up. And many farmers, they take, the fertilizers, the pesticides that are used to kill the insects and pests in the field. They are used to enhance the productivity of the fields. They take up those chemicals and they just they lose onto the hope, given that there is huge level of burden of credit repayment, the problems associated with failure of crops. The burden of repayment is something that is a faux pas. Why? Because many a times the farmers are lent out with helping hands. No farmer should be committing suicide in this country based on the fact that ये धरती मेरी माँ है वाला concept है इस country के अंदर. Second thing is, apart from the burden of credit repayment, there is lack of awareness. Now, if the government is running Pradhan Mantri, Krishi Sinchai Yojana, the government is running various schemes with respect to farmers' income security, PM Kisan scheme, for example, not just income security, the insurance schemes, the weather-based crop insurance scheme, the you know PM Kusum scheme, which adds value and also improves the availability of electricity for pumping purposes. Uh, Kisan Urja Suraksha and Uthan Mahabhiyan, PM Kusum scheme, the schemes that I'm mentioning, PM Kusum, PM Kisan. You would notice one thing when I'm talking about all these schemes, I am not just explaining what the schemes are. आई एम यूजिंग देम एज एन एग्जाम्पल, बट उनको अलग से मेंशन नहीं कर रहा हूं. उनको अपने एनालिटिकल प्रोसेस में आई एम यूटिलाइजिंग दीज स्कीम्स इन माय ओन ऑलरेडी वोवन एनालिटिकल प्रोसेस, है ना. दैट शुड बी द अप्रोच. अकॉर्डिंग टू फूड एंड एग्रीकल्चर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, approximately 40% of the food produced in India is wasted every year. Is wasted every year. Why? Due to fragmented food and inefficiency in supply chain systems. And that is why SCM, supply chain management as a course, is running top charts in all MBA schools. Every MBA school or every business school is running courses on supply chain management. Reason being that these are the major bottlenecks that we are facing today. आज की डेट में यही वो bottlenecks हैं जिसकी वजह से जो लास्ट माइल इम्पैक्ट है वो कम हो रहा है. Further, low income of the farmers has to be worked upon. Now, NSO data of 2021, it reveals that income levels of Indian farmers are at pathetic, pathetic levels. They surveyed certain households, agricultural households, and from July 2018 till June 2019, the average monthly income of a household, average monthly income of a household of five individuals, of four individuals, was around 10,218. 10,000 रुपया महीना monthly, average monthly income. Net receipts obtained, considering the fact that you have paid out expenses approach as well, where all the expenses or majority of the expenses in the agriculture sector are paid out. For example, the subsidy that is given with respect to your, say, fertilizer, say, pesticides, with respect to your irrigation, pumps, electricity, इंश्योरेंस स्कीम्स, जो आप प्रीमियम आप कुछ परसेंट पे करते हो, बाकी सारा गवर्नमेंट पे करती है, all of that, the amount of income further reduces to 8,337 because you already are being given some money by the government, PM Kisan scheme itself. So when the net receipt is obtained, considering that there are both paid out components and also imputed expenses as well that the farmer has to undertake. So only 8,337 rupees are left out. This is from the NSO data from 2021, not too old a data. Use this data to explain the plight of Indian farmers. Use it in your mains examination. Use it in your answers. Note it down somewhere. Okay. Just give me a second. Now, this data can directly be used in your introduction, in your main body, in your conclusion, wherever you feel like that your analysis requires the support of some data. This is where you will have to pick them from. Also, the data that you pick up is from current aspects. I've made sure that all the relevant current affairs information is brought to you through these sessions. We are covering today agriculture. We will continue agriculture and allied activities in the next session. Every single Saturday, every single Sunday, you will be covering these topics. Me and Anshum sir here, me on Sundays, both at 10 a.m. for 2.5 hours. We will be covering this. Stay tuned and keep following. Acha. Also, make sure to follow the various courses that we are offering on Unacademy platform, including the foundation batch for GS. It is a comprehensive course that will take, you can take support of all the mentors from Sriram IAS, including Sriram sir, and using that mentorship, using that guidance on various topics, you can actually realize your dreams for becoming an IAS IPS officer. And make sure that you go and check that course out on an academy platform. Now, high level of disguised unemployment. As per the census data, the rural population stands at 833 million individual. Rural population in India, which is almost 68% of the total population. Number one. Number two, agriculture sector engages 49% of the total labor force. Almost half of the labor force is employed in agriculture. Then contribution is only 17%, 15%, 14%. This keeps on changing. And ever since independence, it has not really increased. Static सी रही है. Initially ज्यादा थी, बाद में static हो गई. Now, based on that analysis, the Indian labor force is highly dependent on agriculture, which results in significant hidden or disguised unemployment in the sector. Why? You have more and more individuals partaking in the processes that otherwise could have been done at half the number. Unpaid family labor is there. So because of that, acha, further, there is an increased use of chemical and pesticides, chemical fertilizers, chemical pesticides, insecticides, etc. They say that somewhere around 275 pesticides have been registered so far for usage in India, out of which 255 are chemical poisons. So you're handing out poisons to the farmer. In total, pesticide consumption insecticide occupy highest share in India. Out of all the pesticides, insecticides has the highest share. However, only 1% of the global pesticide use happens in India. That means India's agriculture दिखाने को बहुत ज्यादा unsustainable दिखाया जाता है by the Western media and the media houses and even on social media. But we are by far one of the most, I would say, let's not use the word efficient, but let's use the word we are most or the least पॉइजनस इन द नेचर. क्यों? क्योंकि हमारे पास केमिकल पॉइजन्स जो हम यूज करते हैं वो सिर्फ 1% है, बाकी दुनिया 99% यूज करती है. बट व्हेन यू रियलाइज इट इन एब्सोल्यूट फिगर्स इट इज टू मच. In fact, the number of cancer cases has have gone up where you have natural resources of irrigation, natural water resources around you. Because of leaching, most of these chemicals they enter into water streams, and those water streams are then further utilized for drinking purposes at various areas. Punjab is a case in point. In the Doab region of Punjab, majority of the cancer patients and majority of the cancer cases have come up because of infected water. Cadmium, arsenium, and various other toxic metals and toxic chemicals are found in the water supply itself, which is not being removed. So that again is a problem. That is a challenge. Okay. Now, high dependence on government and MSP. There is high dependent of farmers on the government as well as on MSP. What I have done is I have brought for you guys the data and the reports with respect to FRP. How FRP is calculated, what is the process, and what was the historical significance. We will be discussing that as well. There are certain solutions to tackle these challenges, including the low private participation in the sector. There was an expectancy of increased participation based on the farm laws, but they have been now retrieved, they have been called back. So there is no purpose to discuss that. Acha. Promoting new technologies and reforming the agriculture research and extension. Research and extension has to be worked upon. Research is where you are working on newer technologies. Extension is the applicability of these newer technologies or the already existing technologies into the field. That is applicability, or rather, that is extension services, where universities, and this started off in 1884, then reached United States in 1904, if I'm not wrong, and multiple names are given to agriculture extension. Multiple Wurlichting and various other names that are given. Now, these agriculture extensions are basically extension of universities' knowledge and wisdom towards the farming sector. These universities used to be called as land grant universities. These land grant universities were given a certain land on which they used to carry out agriculture in an ideal format, and based on those ideal practices certain other farmers used to practice the same, and it was like creating a case study so that it can be implemented in the real world. Okay. Further, that is extension, and based on that extension related data I will be sharing in a couple of probably in the next class, not today, if not today. है ना? Further, there has been a decline in these services, in extension services. हम लोग focus ही नहीं कर रहे हैं. We are not focusing on extension services. Improving water resources and irrigation is again a challenge. India is largest user of water. Largest user of water. Remember this. But increasing competition of water between industry, domestic purposes has led to the problem, and there is a need for a plan that is non-existent. You know, moving further, we are going for per drop more crop, but that will not be enough unless and until there are on a binding basis. There are forced participation or there are enhanced participation from the civil society. Forced as in conditionally forced. Now, Facilitating crop diversification to higher value commodities. If you notice, the integrated farming system is being discussed. It was a part of the question paper in the last from the last year's mains examination. Similar things are covered in this particular point, where crop diversification and diversification of cropping patterns, cropping systems, etc. Cropping pattern and cropping system are two different things. Cropping pattern is basically a subset of cropping system. Cropping system is the overall system that you follow. Pattern is one of the things. It is basically how you have laid down the seeds. That is the pattern. Acha, further. Let's talk about the things that are relevant. Let's pick up on the data. You can always find the presentation and everything. इसको जरा directly focal point पे आते हैं. Let's focus on the high growth commodities को कैसे promote किया जा सकता है. How to promote high growth commodities. Agriculture sector के अंदर भी you will find certain high growth commodities. For example, livestock sector, particularly because of its dairy. It contributes over a quarter, more than 25% of agricultural GDP comes from livestock sector. Why? Because of dairy products. Further, source of income for 70% of India's rural families, mostly those who are poor and they are headed by women. This livestock sector is actually a source of income for all these. Further, growth in milk production around 4% per annum has been happening, and it has been brisk, but future domestic demands is they are expected to grow by at least 5% per annum. Every single year you will have a growth of 5%, and that growth of demand, will it be able to match the growth of production or not? Because you are growing at 4% in milk production and 5% is the demand increasing. तो वही दिक्कत हो जाएगी कि आपकी सैलरी कितनी बढ़ रही है कंपेयर टू इन्फ्लेशन. इन्फ्लेशन ज्यादा तेजी से बढ़ती है एज कंपेयर टू सैलरी. Milk production is constrained with poor genetic quality of cows, inadequate nutrition to livestock, inaccessible vet care, veterinary care. That also is a challenge. And accessibility and affordability are both the aspects that are incorporated. Further, how do you realize that developing markets, agriculture credit, and public expenditures that are a legacy of India's extensive government involvement in the agriculture marketing? How do you deregulate it? That is also a challenge, है ना? All those challenges that we will be discussing in today's session and in also the next session that will happen on Sunday. ये continued series रहेगी. आज we have, yes, certainly we have spent time on understanding the question paper and the syllabus, but otherwise that will not be happening in the future classes. If you have to ever realize what we are to discuss, go to this session, watch this session. We will not waste time. आज कर लिया, आज पहली दिन था, इसके बाद नहीं होगा, है ना? इतनी देर से आप लोग मेरे साथ बैठे हैं. It has been a while that you are sitting with me. Please make sure to like this session. Make sure to like the session, and also to make sure that you have shared this session with your friends. Sharing with your friends, of course, sharing is caring, है ना? But apart from that, sharing also leads to you creating a group of good individuals. पहली बात तो like जरूर कर देना. It creates a group of individuals that you can discuss relevant and important information with. All right. Yeah. So further, let's talk about the impact of climate change and how climate change mitigation happens with respect to agriculture. Extreme events, the frequency is increasing. Number one, droughts, floods, erratic rains, all of them are increasing. They are expected to increase as well, and they will have the greatest impact on rain-fed areas. What you should be doing, you should be considering what is dry farming. What is dry farming or dry land agriculture? Dry farming or dry land agriculture or dry land farming is basically where you utilize natural resources of water. You do not invest too much on Do not invest too much on your irrigation facilities. Limited water is utilized and per drop efficiency of water utility is enhanced. It is one of the ways where you have scarcity of water. You do not allow runoff of water, or you do not allow wastage of water, also leading to leaching, also leading to the processes of not just leaching, runoff water, wastage, and whatnot associated with agriculture, that or rather irrigation, that is reduced. The amount of water lost is also reduced. So drip irrigation, dryland farming, these are various processes. Dryland farming is a more natural way of pursuing irrigation with lesser amount of water. Now, further, there are certain needs with respect to marketing reforms. They are supposed to happen. Indian farmers, they face a problem of low incomes from their vendable surplus crops. Even if they have surplus crops, so bumper crop is a problem because it enhances the supply in the market, reduces the price. Low production is also a problem because it will lead to reduced income for the farmers. That is also a challenge. Further, there are challenges with respect to post harvest losses that we have already discussed. We have to minimize them as well. Acha. We need to develop food processing industry. How do we do that? We will discuss in the topic that we are supposed to cover with respect to food processing alone. तो यहाँ पर करने की बजाय इसको वहां पर करेंगे. Just note that despite the huge growth potential that the industry has in India, it is likely to realize this, but in the future. Today, it is at a nascent stage. Why? Because it is still less than 10% of the total food being produced in the country. So food processing is limited to only 10% of the total production of food items. Further, what are the steps taken by the government in respect to this? So these are the various schemes that we were already discussing in the class. Let's read them through and realize what these schemes have to offer. Soil health card scheme. Soil health card scheme is a one-stop solution to all the problems related to the analysis of what is needed by the soil and what not is needed by the soil. How much is needed by the soil and how much is not needed by the soil. For example, the level of fertilizer that is needed, the kind of fertilizer out of NPK that is needed, the amount of soil organic matter and the role of soil organic matter, everything has been defined through the soil health card scheme. This health card scheme is actually telling you the level of ingredients or the quality of soil per se is being told to the farmer. It is enhancing two things. One, it can be piggybacked on extension services. Two, it can also be a process of creating awareness. When there is no awareness, then the benefits do not reach the intended beneficiary. That is the problem. Further, improving access to irrigation, enhanced water supply through Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, PMKSY. I think I have mentioned what PMKSY was in the previous portion of the lecture. Further, supporting organic farming through Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana. Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana. So parampara is basically traditional. Traditional is basically organic farm. Further, you have Unified National Agricultural Market, which is basically ENAM. Then you have Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, which was recently launched by incorporating multiple insurance schemes. It will also be covering various aspects of losses to the crops in the agriculture sector. It will not be associated only with the loss of crop. Further, the eNAM portal, which is an online trading portal for agricultural products that has been launched. Ashok Dalwai committee, this had suggested certain measures to double the farmers' income by 2022. That was the target, but 2022 that did not happen. National Commission on Farmers, the MS Swaminathan Commission, provides around 1.5 times the MSP that already exists. Then you also have various sectoral, allied sectoral schemes with respect to agriculture. the Matsya Sampada Yojana for fisheries, Rashtriya Gokul Mission for livestock, so on and so forth, and along with doubling of the farmers' income by 2022. That was the case, but अब वो 2022 तक नहीं हो रहा है, certainly, क्योंकि नहीं हुआ है ना? चलो, just give me a second. Yeah. So what is the conclusion? Post-COVID situation has changed. You have to enhance, agriculture to newer heights. You will need investments. You will have to make sure that various aspects of, resilience are incorporated in food security. You have to ensure, downstream and upstream linkages. Social supply chain management has to be addressed. Further, the kind of second green revolution that we are looking at, we need to ensure that the water energy nexus in the agriculture, because the water is supplied through pumps, that can be targeted. It can be targeted through PM Kusum scheme, Pradhan Mantri Kusum scheme. Based on that, you can certainly have more involvement of private sector in that aspect. You can have technological advancements as well, further making agriculture more climate resilient. You have national mission for sustainable agriculture. Environmental sustainability should also be enhanced based on the scheme and based on the NAPCC plan, action plan. And NAPCC action plan, the submission with respect to agriculture, with respect to extension services, there is submission is also there. There is a submission, not off, on. Submission on in agriculture extension services. Now, the extension services have a certain purpose. That purpose has to be to enhance the farmer's income, to make agriculture more climate resilient, to link the academia with the practical aspects of that field, and so on and so forth. Based on that, you will have sustainability around the corner. Moving further to green revolution, the topic of green revolution has been in news, given that we are, basically inching through the second green revolution. That is the reason. Now, since 1960s, the domestic food production has increased. From food deficit, we are food surplus country. We are now export oriented with respect to agriculture and allied activities. 70% of rural households, they are still dependent primarily on agriculture. 82% of the farmers are small and marginal farmers, which is a huge number. 0 to 1 and 1 to 2 hectares. This, the average is 0.44 or 4 something, 4.2 something. This, the average is 1.5 or something. The overall average, if you notice, is less than 1 or around 1 maximum. That tells us something. It tells us that more and more farmers are at the lower than half, lower than 50% levels, and it is not an inclusive format. There is financial disparities within the categories as well, within the categories. How would you target? You fine, you would be working on making the marginalized farmers' income enhanced. You would want to enhance the farmers' income. But how would you realize that the enhanced income per se in the overall segment is also equitably distributed within the segment? That is one challenge that India, and not just India, many other countries have not been able to come up with a solution for. Now, India is facing the second green revolution challenges and problems, especially relating to sustainability, nutrition. New agricultural technologies are to be adopted, and farmers' income, they are limited with respect to the population. How to go on about it? Now, here we talk about the significance of agriculture in Indian economy. This is very plain and generic. I would not be going into the details. ये आप PDF से यूटिलाइज कीजिएगा, उसमें से देख लीजिएगा, पढ़ लीजिएगा. जो ऑलरेडी एग्जिस्टेंट है, ऑलरेडी कर रखा है, उसको बार बार करने से फायदा नहीं है. इट इज बेटर दैट वी कवर थिंग्स दैट आर relevant with respect to data. Let's analyze some more data, है ना? So what are the current challenges confronting Indian agriculture? Degrading soil health. So you can use soil health card scheme, but it has shown that low levels of soil organic carbon across the Indian subcontinent, which is an important indicator of soil health. It is degrading. Jaggi Vasudev, he has been on YouTube for a while and he's been talking about uh, soil health and the land pollution or the soil pollution for a very long time, right? You should also go through this because this is the talk of the town. Then there can be a question directly associated with it. Then the size of the farm is shrinking. Fragmented land size. As soon as a father dies, their sons, their sisters, the siblings, they basically fragment the land on the basis of ownership. This has to be worked on two aspects. One, the process should be simplified, and for that reason, the level of income that the farmer as such is losing on, running through a battle of law, legal battles that are being fought on the grounds of titling, problems with respect to land titling, that should be reduced. And that is why the government is pushing for conclusive titling. There are two things. One is presumptive title, the other one is conclusive titling. So the conclusive titling says that because of this instrument, the owner is this person. Oh, sorry, the presumptive title says that if you go to the registrar's office, to go to the the tehsildar says, give me the instrument. He is actually registering the instrument of transfer. He is not checking whether the person mentioned in the document is the owner. Now, based on that instrument being registered, you go to the estate office or any other land authority. There, you use this registered document to transfer the ownership from A to B based on the presumption that the instrument that is created of transfer of property, that is presumption hai ye, that this particular instrument of transfer of property is accurate. Conclusive titling is actually something which is beyond this, where you will ensure that whosoever's name is enshrined in those documents, in those books where ownership has been mentioned, the conclusive proof will be that. Otherwise, people have to prove through various instruments of transfer from last 30 years, 50 years, even 100 years sometimes, that property was transferred from this guy to this guy, from that guy to that guy, from that guy to that guy. So A, B, C, D, the transfer of property happens like this. Presumptive titling has this problem because the courts, when they have to further question the title, और when someone comes in and says, सर ये जमीन मेरी है, अगला कहता है वो भी मेरी है, सर मेरे पास प्रूफ है, I have registered agreement to sell, I have registered agreement to sell. Both of them, they show GPS, some shows agreement to sell, so on and so forth. The presumption is based on those titles. So what does the court do? The court asks कि चलो पीछे चलते हैं वापस. Let's get back in time and let's see what is who's the owner from before you, before him, before her, so on and so forth. And that is why the title is presumed on the basis of authenticity of instrument, transfer of property instrument. टोपी, इसकी टोपी उसके सर, transfer of property instrument. Now they would say that whatever has been mentioned in the records will be final and conclusive. So there will be less cases in the courts or less pendency in the courts. One thing. Second, farmers' income will not be wasted. Third thing, conclusive titling will also increase the importance and relevance of the record keeping. है ना? So that there are multiple approaches towards conclusive titling that will benefit. Further, the farm size shrinking should also be linked with cooperative farming. है ना? Cooperative farming. Also, trying to utilize farmer producer organizations, FPOs, various trusts, various agencies, so on and so forth. Acha. Let's do one thing. Let's call it a day now, right here. Okay. We will be discussing this topic in the future in the next class on the next Sunday. Make sure to remember that every single Saturday, every single Sunday. Let me give you again the information. Every single Saturday, every single Sunday, we will be covering these courses, we will be covering these classes with respect to important current affairs for mains 2023. We will be covering these topics in a deeper sense. Remember, Saturday and Sunday, you have Anshum sir on Saturdays, you have Sanat sir on Sundays. So, Saturday, Anshum sir, Sunday, Sanat sir, 2.5 hours non-stop topics to be covered: polity, economy, art and culture, IR, science and tech, all the miscellaneous and relevant topics with respect to current affairs for mains 2023. The mission mains 2023 is live and running. Be a part of it. Also, make sure to check out the course Mission 1 Year with Sriram IAS for UPSC CSE 2023, where we are giving out a lot of a lot of information. Make sure to follow the referral code of SRIRAMS, that is Sriram's. If you use this referral code, as I've told you earlier as well, you will get an instant 20% discount flat on all UPSC CSE subscriptions that Sriram's IAS brings to you guys on Unacademy platform. For now, this is it. I will see you guys rather first on Saturday. Anshum sir will see you guys, and then on Sunday, I will see you guys again. Take care. God bless you all. Bye bye. I hope you have a wonderful day ahead.